Hi, so today I'm going to be playing through a game that I first built, or started building as a 13-year-old, and was really my first exposure to programming or game development. Prior to this time, I think I wasn't really aware of the fact that games, software in general, were actually made by people. I mean, of course, it's obvious in hindsight, but to me, it was more just these things existed. Sometimes new games would come out, and I never really thought about who made them or any of the intentionality behind why they were made in a certain way. And so once I sort of discovered that there was a thing called programming, and that was the act of making a computer do something according to a set of instructions, I became pretty hooked on the idea and immediately wanted to use that ability to create games of my own. And so from there, I started this journey, which began with this game right here that I'm going to play through today. So I'm going to subject myself to the somewhat traumatic experience of seeing what I built as a 13-year-old and reliving the terrible writing and somewhat questionable tastes of a 13-year-old who was heavily into kind of, well, things like Final Fantasy VII, various anime, military fiction, and generally just yeah, not a fantastic example of a game in particular or of any writing, but it's certainly an interesting and cathartic experience for me to relive this, and hopefully it's of some interest or value to anyone who watches this as well. So let's get started. Okay, cool. So we have a little particle effect, little studio logo come up. Also like the little theme song. Thanks, shout out Luke Smith for that one, and all the other music in the game actually. And so we can see we have a very cinematic intro. We have like an opening credit scroll, with a bunch of character names who we haven't explained at all so far. Some of these characters never appear at all in the story, so I don't know exactly where they came from or what the point of them was. And here we are at the main menu. The somewhat awkwardly titled, well, extremely awkwardly titled Guild the Return. Not quite sure why I settled on that name, but anyway, that is what it is. So we have the main menu here, and cool little theme song in the background. Once again, thanks Luke for that one. I will admit it's pretty annoying to hear it on a PC speaker. I think with some addition of maybe some like kind of synth instruments and a little bit more audio engineering, it could probably sound quite cool. The bones of it are there, but as it is, it's kind of funny hearing the song after all this time. There's certainly some emotional memories there for me. So yeah, the funny thing here is this menu is very over-engineered. It doesn't really need a lot of these options. It doesn't really need any options, to be honest. I added this sound option kind of hilariously. There's these three options: good, bad, and off. Good is basically the only one that you would ever want to use. Bad actually puts the audio into foreground mode, which means that any execution of the game actually pauses while the sound plays, which is, there's no way you ever want it to do that. But I insisted on having this as an option that you could play through the game in. So I wanted options, so I built options. You can also switch the intro on and off. So let's get into it. So we find ourselves in the High Council Chamber at 0900 hours. And I guess the thing to remember with all of the sort of story elements of this game is 90% of it is ripped off of Final Fantasy VII, and the other few percent are sort of other anime tropes and sort of various bits of military fiction from sort of cringeworthy Tom Clancy type stuff. So that's kind of how you should be thinking about most of the stuff that happens here. So yeah, we're in this High Council chamber. We have this guy, Admiral Ricari, and it sounds like he's against some rebels. There's problems with rebels by the looks of it. They're attacking our border patrols, and he says swift action must be taken. And so we have some other high-ranking bureaucrats by the sound of it in here. We have a general, and he's sort of urging caution. We have the Prime Minister who's here, all right, who agrees with the general. He doesn't think we should be hasty on this. We don't know who they are or what they want, and the Navy's on board with this as well. Admiral Ricari, on the other hand, is not having any of this. We have to take this seriously. We have to do something about it now. and we have to deliver a fatal blow. And once again, the Prime Minister's not on board with this. Admiral Ricari doesn't want to back down. Things are starting to get heated now. How dare you interrupt me? How dare you question the council? Maybe the head of the military, blah blah blah. This is not a military issue, so you may leave now. And now it's getting sinister, so you'll regret this. And how dare you threaten us? So the Prime Minister is not happy. It seems like Admiral Ricari has some sort of agenda here. Like he's very much not on the same page as everyone else. So for some reason, he really wants these rebels to pay. Maybe some foreshadowing for later. Once again, you can kind of think of this organization as basically Shinra. Nadi is Shinra, effectively. And the rebels are Avalanche, so it's pretty much a one-to-one mapping with Final Fantasy VII. It's a complete rip-off. So he's handing it over to the intelligence department, whatever that means. So he's going to go about doing that. Meeting adjourned. Alright, so we find ourselves in the Netgear military base. There's quite a lot of text on the introduction to this game, just as a sort of a forewarning. When I first began making this, I didn't really have much ability to build graphical or interactive stuff, so originally it was actually going to be 100% a text adventure. And as I got better over time at building kind of interactive systems and graphics and things like that, it ended up becoming more and more interactive, and you can kind of see the evolution of that as we kind of play through, even in the sort of short amount of gameplay that there actually is. So here we are, we're introduced to Jeffrey and Freelander. What kind of hilarious name. I think I took the aesthetics from these names from the Final Fantasy VII once again. There's some awkwardly named characters in Final Fantasy. You have kind of Cloud Strife and things like that, where there's these names which are obviously kind of anglicized from the original Japanese, or they're sort of taken as kind of keywords, sort of same way like kind of Hideo Kojima kind of has kind of odd names for like his sort of groups and names and characters in his games. And so I thought that was like extremely cool, and so I then took that same aesthetic of trying to create names which look like they had sort of been taken from another source and anglicized. And so you have these sort of awkward names with like really overbearing kind of thematic elements in them, like Jeffrey and Freelander. So that's kind of funny to me. So he's the main character. Some sort of wager has happened here. They're on a shooting range or something to that effect. He's shot 20 out of 20, so he's a great sniper. We're trying to establish that one early. This is his buddy Kale, so we're also coming from the fantasy tradition of badly placed apostrophes in names. So they had some sort of deal. They're kind of gambling. They're guys being dudes. Here's your money, sweet. So there's an overhead speaker. They got to report to the colonel's office, so something's going down, and so they're kind of nervous about it. So now the colonel's gonna tell them what they need to know. So they're reporting for duty. And funny thing is, even the name Colonel Eldenson, it kind of reminds me of like a cop movie where they're brought in front of like the lieutenant or something, and you're being sort of beaten up for their conduct in the field or whatever. I know you get results, but your conduct is out of control. You blew up 2 patrol cars in your last mission, etc., etc. Hand in your badge and your gun. So it's sort of, I think that's kind of the vibe they're going for here. But in actual fact, he's just saying he's a little bit frustrated that you two people you're too good for this place. You've got to go somewhere else. So he's offering a transfer to Renobu 6 in Tiank, and I think that's the sort of elite commando unit in the big city, basically. So think SAS, think Navy SEALs, and Tiank think like Midgar or Night City. Any of those kind of like cyberpunk cities kind of stands as a fill-in for that. So they've been given the option to go and join this unit, so they're going to think about it. So what do you think of his offer? And Cal says, it's been a dream, but he's kind of not sure. Jeffy, on the other hand, he's totally sure. He wants out of here. He wants, once I see Tiank's neon glow, I'll never want to go back. A dream job in the big city. How can you turn that down? Well, there you go. I think they're probably settled. I think this is going to happen. So let's go for it. I like the little musical interludes too. It's cute. So yeah, then we have some description. You're in a helicopter. You're a VTOL, and you're flying through. For some reason, this has been switched to like a second person kind of perspective, which is kind of odd. I don't know why I did that actually. It's kind of a jarring change from being sort of from the previous sort of conversations and how the rest of the story's panned out. But anyway, so this goes into like more of a kind of description of things, and you can see like my pretty poor attempts at descriptive writing. There's this sort of weird habit I have of like putting very specific numbers on everything rather than just sort of leaving it as a general description. It's like you're traveling along at just under Mach 2, you left at 5 a.m. this morning, and then even to like how much vertical thrust is required for this helicopter to land and how far it like is above the ground at any one time. I'm guessing that's sort of an influence of sort of like Tom Clancy-ish kind of garbage into the writing, and it really doesn't add to the sense of immensity or impressiveness. It just kind of limits it. So if I was to write this again, I think having some sort of more like personal sort of first person view of things, where like how would he know like how many pounds of vertical thrust there were? Like there's no need to put that in. Maybe just talk more about how it feels as like the craft decelerates or something like that would be much more effective and evocative, I think. So yeah, plane lands, you're in a hangar, there's a bunch of soldiers around, you're kind of in the east wing of Renobu headquarters now. So you're given a quick introduction. Yeah, your buddies are in dorm room 6, and you're sort of free to wander around. Well, you will be in a second. And you can visit a lab to get yourself a new weapon. And Dr. Morgan, who runs the lab, is a bit of an eccentric apparently, so we'll keep an eye out for that. And so here we are. This is the first bit of actual interactive gameplay that we have. We have the east wing of Renobu headquarters, and so the way that this works is you can't sort of freely move around, but you can cycle between these set locations. And so you can see even in some of them, like the door kind of opens to give you an indication of where it is. Also kind of a funny design here that the corridor is so narrow that you can't go into both battle training or dorm room 6 at the same time. So Renobu obviously has some budgetary problems. It's a very like rabbit warren kind of setup where everything's very narrow. So I think for a first location, let's go to the weapons lab. Let's stock ourselves up, and then maybe we can go to the shop and buy some stuff and do some battle training, and then maybe get back into where the story kind of left off from there. So we have Dr. Morgan. He yet to choose a weapon, yeah, among other things, Doc. So he's going to show us a few options. Battle gear, and once again we have these inane descriptions of like exactly how many grams the body armor is, and how many milliliters of air there are in a rebreather tank and things like that. The key bit here is you've got a fine titanium broadsword, so that's your default weapon. Now we get to choose some additional stuff. So there's 3 here, and I think these pretty much map to sort of the 3 categories of like short range, powerful weapon, long range sort of sniping weapon with the rail pistol. The first one's a shotgun, and then the last one's a combat laser, so that's kind of like the jack of all trades in between the 3. So let's go with the assault shotgun. I wanna go short range. So I'll take number 1, the auto shotgun. Excellent choice, but be careful, guns are dangerous, you know. And then Jeffian, thanks, I didn't know that. Think I could have shot myself, weirdo. So Jeffian's a pretty dislikable character in general. He's kind of annoying. I'm not sure whether that's because I just thought that was cool when I was writing it, and that's how a cool guy would talk, or whether it's I'm deliberately actually copying sort of the writing style or the character style of Cloud in the beginning of Final Fantasy VII, where he's pretty kind of curt and dislikable to everyone as well. Could be a little bit of both, I'm not sure, but anyway, the fact that it mentioned that Dr. Morgan was an eccentric is maybe like a writing miss on my part. I think the intention here was for Dr. Morgan to come across as being a little off, and Jeffian's sort of like making a bit of fun about that, but as it is, it actually sounds like Dr. Morgan is just like a normal guy, and Jeffian's just being a bit of a dick. Yes, or someone else. Maybe that was supposed to be eccentric. Once again, I don't know. Just it sounds like, yeah, Jeffian's just being a bit of a dick. So we've got another weapon, and here's one thing I found actually that was sort of incomplete from the original game. If you go into the shop, you can't actually switch between your weapons. So if you want to upgrade a weapon, there's actually no way to unless you pick the right one beforehand. So the only way to do that, I found, is to go into the in-game menu where there's an option here where you can see some of your stats. But you can also see the weapon and you can cycle between them. And so if I want to do anything to this auto shotgun, I'll need to switch to it before I go into the shop. And so you can see there's a few stats here. We have AP, R, and AC. AP is the attack power of the weapon, R is the range, and AC is the accuracy, I believe. And so that has some relevance when we actually get to the battle simulations and things like that. So let's go back. That's also funny. Guild the return and then return. So return of the guild returns. It's kind of silly. Right, let's go to the shop. So originally this wasn't actually hooked up in the game anywhere. I was sort of experimenting with this, I think, as sort of a separate system when I kind of lost the original game and stopped working on it. The intention here is that, you know, it was supposed to be kind of an RPG, so there would be lots of locations around the world where you could go and buy stuff, sell stuff, you know, upgrade things. And so there was a spot in the original Renobu headquarters, which this is currently called the shop. It used to be just some empty hallways, and there was kind of a bit of flavor text saying, like, there's a bunch of offices down there, there's nothing there. So in the interest of getting the game up and running again and kind of playing through it today, I thought, it'd be fun if I just hooked the shop up to it so that we could actually use it in the game, even though it didn't really appear anywhere originally. So that's the reason for that. So you can kind of cycle through. There's a few options. You can see some weapons. You can do some upgrades. We can sell stuff. There's some items. Funny thing on the usability front here, the items for healing are both called RHQ-73, and one's a shot and one's a spray. Those names are extremely unintuitive. It doesn't really mean anything. And then in the battle system, I think I refer to them for some reason as RHQ-73I is the shot and RHQ-73S is the spray. And it's just completely baffling. Like, you wouldn't know which was which or why. So for some reason, I thought that was cool. And there's also this other thing called adrenaline shots, which you can use to, I think, buff your stats temporarily and things like that. But we can't afford any of that. We only have 100 cash, and those are all 150. One thing we can afford is an upgrade. So I can upgrade my shotgun with an enhanced magazine, which should bump the attack power for 50. So I can do that. So I can upgrade, and now it's all shiny and silver, I guess, is the intention here, instead of just being a plain unadorned weapon. So I've got my auto shotgun all buffed up. So let's go to the battle training. Let's test this thing out. So there's a bunch of descriptions about how the battle works. I'll just talk through it instead. The funny thing about the sort of tutorial elements of this game is that I went to huge amounts of detail here describing all the parts of the battle system, and yet when you first enter the Renobu headquarters, there's no explanation as to how you should move anywhere. And you have to use a spacebar, which is completely non-intuitive. So some elements of the game are explained in excessive detail, and some of the other really basic stuff is just not explained at all. So it's funny from a usability point of view. And so because this is a simulation, we get to choose what type of battle we want, and because we chose a shotgun, let's just keep it close range, because otherwise it could be a very long and tedious battle. Because I believe the way that I built it is the weapon's power is modulated by the range, and so a short range weapon like a shotgun will do basically no damage at long range. And so in the interest of not having this battle go on all day, let's keep it close range. Boom, and they had the first turn, so they attacked first and they missed. So basically we have two columns. We have on the left your party and yourself, and then on the right you have the enemies. And so you can kind of cycle through, and you've got these little sounds that sort of accompany everything, so it's kind of cool. You can choose to do a bunch of things. You can attack, you can heal, you can run, you can defend, you can use an item, you can switch your weapon. And so let's start off. I think I've got a couple of options strategy-wise here. I can either pick off the sort of secondary guys and then start to concentrate on the squad leader, or I can pick him off first because he's the most powerful and then kind of deal with the others later. I think what I'll do is I'll just pick off some of his secondary guys first, and then we can just concentrate on killing him. So let's start attacking those other guards. and then he immediately starts healing them. So the relevant stats here, you've got health and you've got power. So health is your HP essentially. Power is like your MP, magic points, mana, whatever. It's kind of any action that you take uses up that power. And so you can regenerate it by defending, going into kind of a defensive posture for some time, or you can use items. So let's try again. Boom, 27 down. Let's use this guy. Let's balance between him. He's going to heal him again. You'll notice healing really takes it out of the power of the squad leader, so he's really draining his power by continuing to heal that guy. So that's good. That'll be beneficial for us. You'll also notice he healed himself for no reason there. The reason behind that is originally when I built it, I wanted to, the AI to sort of take the optimal path for everything. So it would always try and, heal the person who had the most damage, or it would attack the person who was weakest, or things like that. And kind of wasn't really that fun. And sort of learned an early game dev lesson that AI is not about choosing the optimal decisions. It's about doing the ones which make the player feel smart and empowered, and also that they're beating someone that, has a little bit, just enough wiggle room to kind of make it interesting, or make it feel like maybe they've got one over on the AI. So occasionally the AI will sort of deliberately do stupid things, like it'll heal someone who has full health, for example. So let's get rid of this guy. Boom, so one guard is down. How are we doing here? Yep, we can probably start to get this guy out of the way. Yeah. And this guy's health's getting a little low. Let's probably attack a couple more times. Health's on 75, power's on 36. So there's another option we have here called defend, which basically puts you into a defensive posture and brings your power up and also makes you less vulnerable to attack. So I'll just do that just to get him back up to where he should be. The other thing, let's attack a little bit more, see if we can get him out of the way. Oh, we missed. Now he's defending himself, but he's only on 1 health, so I can get him. All right. Now, let's use an item here. Let's use adrenaline to, see, RHQ 73 shot and spray. I think one of them heals just one person, one of them heals both, like the entire party or something, but once again, who knows. Let's go adrenaline. This is like a buff. So boom, my power level's 100. Now I'm going to really lay into the damage on this guy. Let's do that. Boom. Oh, now he's healing himself. Well, you can heal me then. How about that? Oh, we missed. Oh, he's healing himself. But see how low his power level is. He's in trouble here. See, the battle system does tend to be a little bit repetitive, especially when it gets to the stage of where he's basically just going to turtle the whole time, and while I'm trying to attack him. Actually, I won't do that. Let's change my weapon. Let's see if that broadsword can do some damage. We're pretty close here. So let's do that. Oops. Oh, that's a bug. Look, it still thinks I'm in weapon switch mode. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, there are a few bugs here, which you can also see when I do some other things as well. I noticed there were also some weird issues where if you switch around sometimes, like the upgrade status from weapons persists on different weapons and things like that. Oh, that broadsword did bad. See the the broadsword just became silver for some reason. I don't know why that is. It shouldn't be happening. That broadsword's pretty rubbish, actually. I think I'm going to switch back to that auto shotgun. That wasn't any good. Yeah, that's better. We're doing well here. We're going to get this one soon. Oh. Yeah. Cool, and then we can see a little bit of a summary for how the battle went. In the actual game itself, you would, increase your power level. In this, because it's a simulation, I think that doesn't apply to your persisted stats. There's also some efficiency, which I don't know what how that's calculated, but 6%, cool, I guess. It's how long we spent, and there's also, you can earn money from the battles and things like that. So that's the battle system. That took a long time to build. It was probably the most complicated thing I'd ever built up until that point. You know, lots of things like AI and a lot of kind of arithmetic and formulas and different states and the UI and stuff like that. So, you know, despite the fact that we did run into a few bugs, by and large, it actually works pretty well. So you won the battle. And so you can go through and actually try the different weapons and go back to Dr. Morgan's office and get different weapons, but, you know, same kind of outcome. So then we have a few sort of areas of the story here. We can actually just go back to the helipad here and talk to the pilot. In the version of the game that I lost, I'd actually built out a lot of this in a graphical form. So you could actually go into the hangar and see the helicopter walk around and talk and stuff like that. In this version, it's just the original text-based version. So, you know, it's a typical sort of Zork adventure game type system where you can, you know, choose a few responses. Well, it's not a text parser. It's specific options and then like a dialogue tree that you can go through. So yeah, there's a helicopter out here. There's a pilot. And see, once again, he's saying they should keep her steady in 120 per hour winds. Once again, like weirdly specific in the numbers. And so, you know, we can ask some things. So, you know, let's talk about how cool the helicopter is. So let's say, you know, nice bird there. So yeah, she's a beauty, all right. She's the AT-28L Narwhal. You know, another elegant and magnificent creature. So, you know, it sounds like he's a glorified taxi driver, but then there's some weird vibes coming in at the end here where he said, you know, remember when a few months back a rebel train blew up and they said it was from a reactor failure? Well, let's just say the rail cannon had a bit of a workout that day. So there's something not quite right with Renobu. That sounds kind of like there was potentially like innocent people being shot at and then it's sort of a cover-up. But this pilot doesn't seem to think that's a bad thing. You know, Jeffrey then responds saying, you know, Nadi said it was a freight train, not a rebel train, which is also kind of weird. So something's off here, and that's kind of the sort of one of the first forewarnings of that you know, not everything is right with Renobu, and you know, it's another sort of warning from Admiral Rikari's involvement in some sort of shady operation. So yeah, don't believe everything you see on the news, kid. And yeah, so there's a few other options and bits of flavor text like that we can go through, but generally that's the main thematic element you get from talking to the pilot. So then, if I'd actually completed this, where we would have gone is Admiral Rikari's office to do the mission briefing, because that's sort of the next stage of the game as you go on a mission to do something. And I never got around to doing it. Actually, I think I did in the Lost version. The idea here is you have a conversation about you're needed to break out some commandos who've been imprisoned by rebels on an island, and etc. etc. We'll go to the island in a second, so we'll actually see why. But as it is in the game, there's kind of no connective tissue between that, so you basically just go here and then immediately you turn up on an island, and it's like, why? So let's go to the dorm room. Once again, there's a few options of things you can do. There's actually an interactive game here, so you can play. They're playing cards. You can play the game if you want. So it's a very simple gambling game. Basically, you place a bet. You pick a number between 1 and 10. If you get it right, you get your money back. If you get it close, you get some money back. Otherwise, you lose it. So let's pick a number 5. Oh, and I lose. 1 was the number. I picked number 5, so I lost. Let's see if we can win something, shall we? Let's place some money again. Let's pick a number. Let's pick number 2, shall we? Oh, we lose again. This is why I don't gamble. Let's try one more time. How about, yeah, let's stick with number 2. Nothing, and no reason not to. Oh, I keep losing. Gambling is addictive. Don't do it, kids. And we keep losing. I'm gonna give up while I'm ahead. That's really all there is to it. I one of the very first things I ever programmed was like a silly like card game like that. So I think I just put it in because it was there and it kind of was a bit of flavor for the interactions here. So let's come back here. So let's say I'm really tired. I want to get some sleep. Let's kind of advance the story. That was sort of the intention. The beds are comfy. Fall asleep. This is where you would have had some sort of description and mission briefing as to like, why are you on an island? Why is there an escape boat? Like, what's going on here? As it is, it's sort of this jarring like 1-2 to both of them. And the interface has changed completely too. And so this is where I was talking about this sort of evolution of the game and how it's played and how you interact with it as I kind of got better at programming and building out sort of graphical interfaces and systems and things like that. So now you can actually walk free form, and it has proper collision detection with all the boundaries of the island and things like that. So the way that the UI works is you've got these options, these sort of verbs for interacting with things down the bottom. And then you have, as you can see, I'm sort of cycling through, this is your chosen verb at any one time. And if the box on the left is activated, that means that that verb is active at that location. So see, if I go close to the boat, the examine/move verb opens up. I don't think I actually did anything for the boat, so nothing happens when you hit it, but I'll show you an example of it. So similarly, we have this communication tower. If you go close enough to it, you can examine it. And similarly with this prison location. So think story-wise, this is pretty much a rip-off of the beginning of Final Fantasy VII with some different set dressing. You are entering an escape boat to an island, and the difference here is from Final Fantasy VII is there's an initial step where you're going to be trying to break some of your comrades out of prison. So the situation is there was a communication tower, rebels have taken it over, they put the guards and stuff in the prison, and now they're using it to like broadcast some like rebel propaganda or something to that effect, if I can remember correctly. And from then, when you actually break your guys out of the prison, you then go to try and retake the communication tower, and that's where some of the the real shady stuff goes down, and it's very much I think a false flag type operation that Admiral Ricari has been setting up, I think. Similar to the start of Final Fantasy VII, where Shinra sets up Avalanche to blow up the Mako reactor and kind of blame all of the additional damage on Avalanche. And so, yeah, one-to-one basically. It doesn't really matter. So let's go to the prison. And there's sort of a little bit of a puzzle here. So we're trying to break them out. So let's go to the prison. Let's go there. Let's examine. Let's move there. Oh, you reach forward, you touch the fence. Ah, it's electrified. I can't climb it. Oh no, what could I ever do? It's electrified, and there's a power generator. I wonder if there's a connection between these two things. So let's go use talk. I don't know why the verb is different. Like, why don't we move into the power generator? But there's sort of an ambiguity there in the use of verbs. But anyway. So you walk into a small room containing a friction generator. Friction generator. Okay, that's a hint. And there's a cooling tank that says main valve control. So these are all kind of hints about what this could all mean. So we have this little control panel here, which is kind of cool. And so where are we at now? Power output is 90%. And so if we move this up, like the temperature and power output goes up. If we move it down, it goes down. And so well, let's just move it all the way down, right? Like if we take it down to 1%, that's probably going to work, wouldn't you say? Like that's going to switch the electric fence off. So let's try again. Can we get in now? It's still electrified. Huh, that's weird, right? So the funny thing is about this puzzle, I completely didn't think of it at the time, but my assumption was that no one would do this. No one would move it down to 0 or down to 1%. My assumption was that people would, as a solution to this puzzle, would move it up, would like try and put it into warning mode and actually blow the thing up. Like, to me, that seemed the obvious one, and the way I've coded it in the original games, that's the only way to solve the problem. You can't actually turn it down and climb over the fence. You have to put it into warning mode and get the generator to actually overheat and blow up. So kind of an example where I could have had like a bit of a non-linear solution to this, depending on which approach you want to take. But as it was, I actually just plain didn't think of the other option, which is kind of funny in retrospect. I don't know why. So now that we've set it into warning mode, oh shit, this thing's gonna blow, and kaboom. I'm quite proud of that effect. It took quite a lot of work to get the little particle effects and like the crater and everything. And so now definitely the electric fence should be turned off, because there is no power going to that thing whatsoever. And so here we are, we're in the prison, and we've sort of established this affordance that square dots are characters or movable people. And so we have this guy in blue walking back and forward who, we have to assume is probably the prison guard, right? He's kind of patrolling back and forth. So we have a bit of a stealth section here. So I'm sort of hiding. And depending on the direction, we can get away with walking past him. See, I can sneak past as he's walking away. If he's walking towards you and you come up to him, you'll enter the battle system and you'll actually have to fight him. I'm going to try and do the sort of no attack version, the no kill version of this. So let's go to the security computer. It's a cool little sprite that I drew there. Tons of keys and like an actual like little mirrored image of the prison itself. So we can use the security computer, and now we go into sort of a cool like control panel view, and we can see the middle cell has like a bunch of people in it, right? So that's probably our comrades who've been holed up in there. So if I unlock that cell, that's probably going to let them out. So if I do that, I can unlock it, and then boom, the guard's gone. That's kind of a little bit unexpected, but thematically the intention here was that you've released all your comrades, they rush out, they like beat the guard up, like the guard is gone. Now where are all your comrades? They're also not there. So this actually is sort of the anticlimax, but this is actually the end of really where I got to in actually programming the game. The intention here would be that those people you've released would then become part of your party, and then you would go to the communication tower and kind of fight your way through the rebels there in order to like progress in the story. As it is, that's kind of the end for what I actually built. You can't actually go into the cell or anything like that. But as you can see, like there's a pretty significant kind of change as you go from like the beginning to level 1 in Renobu headquarters to here. And there's kind of the beginnings of what could be a pretty interactive kind of RPG system. And so building like the basics of this, was kind of really at the limits of what I could do, and in a lot of cases what like QBasic could realistically do as well. Which, yeah, sometimes I kind of managed to push past those limits with things like the little particle effects and explosions and stuff like that, and other times I'm sort of subject to it. Like you'll notice like quite a lot of the time the animation is like a little bit flickery. You can sort of see it occasionally, like the red dot sort of flickers, and that's just due to the way that I didn't know how to do double buffered animation, and it wasn't really supported in this screen mode in QBasic. So yeah, a couple of other quirks I also just noticed. If you move diagonally, you can move much faster. Anyone who knows about Pythagoras theorem will understand why. You have the hypotenuse is is longer than the sum of the two cardinal directions, and so if you don't account for that and actually reduce the velocity, and when you go diagonally, you will actually go faster. A lot of games have this bug, this game included. I obviously did know about Pythagoras theorem at the time, because that's actually how the triggers for these interactions work. It's the radius from a center point enables those triggers. So I did know about that, but I obviously didn't think about it for the diagonal movement, and it's actually just faster to move that way. And yeah, so I did get around to doing some extra pieces in this, which once again are kind of lost forever. And so, unfortunately I'll never get to demo those or go through them. But this is really what represented sort of the state of the art as far as I was concerned, and my ability to build games at this time. And it was really kind of the springboard for me for many other sort of unfinished game dev projects, and eventually sort of a career in programming, software development, and technology that kind of grew out of that. So it's been very interesting and kind of cathartic to go back and view all this and see what I built all those years ago. And at the same time, like kind of a little bit cringeworthy as well, kind of looking back and seeing at what I sort of thought to myself was going to be, the sort of groundbreaking and amazing game, and with an incredible storyline and all this kind of stuff. That looking back, I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm glad I didn't distribute this further. So maybe a little bit of poking fun at my own expense, but at the same time, genuinely kind of a bit of an emotional journey and nostalgia being able to go back and see this. So hopefully this was interesting to anyone else watching. It's mainly for me, so I don't expect it to be incredibly compelling viewing for anyone else, but certainly if anyone else has similar early experiences in technology, can probably relate to having sort of lost gaming projects and those initial early experiments which sort of lead you on the way to careers either in like technology or like in games themselves. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.